Hello and welcome to a Club World Cup fantasy football video, a wildcard draft, and a bit of linkage to some Bible content, which will all be explained. I hope you're enjoying the Club World Cup. I hope it's been a good break from FPL. If that's something I assume most of you have been doing, if you've tuned into this video. Essentially, on this channel, I put together FPL teams which comprise of players who represent authors in the Bible. And if a player scores in real life, I can read from that passage in relation to the player's name, which relates to a chapter in the Bible. And I also link the chapter to the goal time. So, for example, very creative, very random, I appreciate. But the heart behind it is good. So, for example, in the Bayern 10-0 thrashing, this is a player I considered using. So if I had um, Elise, Old Testament. There's a slight bit of linkage with the name. Clutching at straws. I haven't actually gone with him, but let's say I was going with him, and I could read from any Old Testament passage in relation to say the 20th minute, and I went to Exodus chapter 20, say because Exodus is in the Old Testament. I could do a little talk on the Ten Commandments, which is what Exodus chapter 20 talks about, and I might say something like, you know, God set a perfect standard for his people to abide by in Exodus chapter 20 with the Ten Commandments. And I might talk a little bit about how that standard actually realistically is something none of us can live up to, which is why we needed Jesus to come and die on the cross to forgive us from our sins, who lived a perfect life on our behalf, so anyone who puts their trust in him can be saved. And it's basically a way of doing some sort of fun hobby FPL related thing, which I enjoy doing, and I assume if you're watching this, you enjoy that too, while also using it as a way of linking me into a Bible passage to bring some Bible input, to bring some Christian input, to basically bring some meaning into the world of FPL, which I think is largely quite a meaningless thing if you really think about it. Like, unless you win the overall thing, you can't really get much from it unless you've got like a YouTube channel and you're like one of the sort of highest ranked players, and then you get lots of views and potentially money through that avenue. There's only so much you can achieve with FPL. It's at the end of the day like football players that get sort of virtual points, which amount to you progressing up and down mini leagues for the sake of, I guess, hoping you can get higher than your mate. Um, so this is kind of a way of trying to bring more meaning to it. Hopefully, trying to help you to see that actually, there's a God that's bigger. Some of the trivial things of this world that can give you more meaning and purpose in life. While also you can still enjoy a hobby at the same time, which is kind of what I try and do. And I basically my game week match day one team, which is you can see on screen. I basically went into it just seeing how well I could do initially, to be honest. And match day one has gone. It's gone okay, but it's not gone great. The biggest disaster class has been I stupidly knee jerked and brought in Mbappe and captained him for I think like a cane, but I had captain on Palmer. And then Mbappe ended up being ill tonight and didn't play. So I ended up getting 0 points for Mbappe and losing my three extra for Palmer. And I also lost the two for Kane, who was in the team. And I also knee jerked in Gvardiol for Girassi, who ended up not playing. So I lost another 2 points there. So I basically put 7 points down the drain tonight for no particular reason, rather than, yeah, I was a bit impatient before checking the lineups. So I think in terms of the season ambitions, in terms of trying to win the overall thing, I think they're almost done. So I thought what I'll do is I'll put together a team full of players whose names can correlate with chapters in the Bible in a way that can cover the whole of the Bible books. And at the same time, I've tried to put together a competitive team that could still do well. You never know, if I do really well, I could win the whole thing. There's a bunch of differentials in here, which yeah, a key to sort of making ground, while also I've got some of the big hitters in. And I've somehow managed to link them all to Bible related names towards then. Yeah, next at the end of the next match day, I'll do a roundup of how I've done, while also doing a little talk about yeah, hopefully a return that I've got that links me into a Bible passage. So here's how the team looks. So in goal, I've got John. Surprise, surprise, represents a book that John wrote in the Bible. And I guess for a goalkeeper, he's going to have to save a penalty for that to count as a return. So the way these episodes work is a player's got to get a return. And yeah, the time of the return is when I then go to that relevant chapter or verse in relation to that number. So if John makes a penalty save, I can read one of the books of John in relation to the time that happened. Because that's unlikely to happen, I've got another John option in the form of Jonathan Tarr. So if he scores or assists or whatever, I can read from one of the books John wrote. Mark Cucurella, so the Book of Mark, if he gets a return. Otamendi, so OT, I've got representing Old Testament. You see what I did there? He's got some nice fixtures. He scored in the last game week. I think he scored and assisted actually. He smashed it. So yeah, 12 points. I think he had 15 originally. Anyway, either way, massive score. So we know what he can do. Reece James is the only Booker James option I could find, but he played for Chelsea in their last game. He's got a return in the locker, so we'll see how he does. We've then got the Paul. So any of the books Paul wrote, if this guy returns, I will read from. And look, he started their last game against PSG. I think he's got a couple of better fixtures coming up, so you never know. I've got the captain's armband on him because I figured out you can have a different captain on each individual 24-hour day. So we'll see how he gets on. Is it in the early hours today? I think tomorrow afternoon. This chap for Benfica, good fixture. Plus, it's the closest thing I could find to Acts, the Book of Acts. So both a good pick and also will represent the Book of Acts for us. So yeah, that should be nice. And I think he's easy playing Auckland, the team that got battered by Bayern. So I'm really hoping for something there. Along with Otamendi and this guy we'll talk about in a minute. Lucas Ribeiro, so he'll represent the Book of Luke. And he seems like one of their main guys from a brief bit of research. A couple of okay fixtures. Hopefully he can get a return for us. Jude Bellingham, the only option for the Book of Jude, but a very good option. And a couple of nice fixtures to finish the group stages on. And then this guy, Pavlidis, I think I've finally got my words out there. Again, he's got the Auckland fixture. And because Paul wrote a lot of books, I wanted another Paul option. So I thought, look, it looks a bit like Paul. If you change that V for you, it's Paul. It's close enough. You've kind of got to take what you can get while submitting a competitive team. Um, P.S. I've got another goalkeeper who's Mark Shajan, so another option for the Book of Mark, but at least Mark Cucurella is a more likely option for the Book of Mark. And Mbappe I've justified because there's not really many Peter options for a book that Peter wrote. So the P at the end is like the first two letters of Peter. So we're gonna go with it. Because like I said, I wanna have a competitive enough team that still covers all the books in the Bible, and Mbappe just about does the job for that. It's same clutching at straws a bit with Erling Haaland. There's not really many Hebrews options, and you've got a H and you've got an E there. Hebrews, you can kind of see what I've done there, clutching at straws, but it's a competitive way of getting the Book of Hebrews covered. This one I think is a good one. Trent Alexander-Arnold, Old Testament, so I can read from anything in the Old Testament. If he gets a return, same with Otamendi as discussed earlier. So we've got a couple of options to cover the Old Testament, a couple of options to cover a book that Paul wrote, because that covers most of the chapters in the Bible, and then we've got some coverage for every other chapter, including the Book of Matthew. This one's touching at straws a little bit, Mastanano, or however you say that. It's a little bit looks a little bit like Matthew. At least as the first two letters, there's a T in there. It's close enough, and this guy's looking quite good for River Plate. Plays every game, he's on a lot of set pieces, and he also worked quite well financially because I've got a team full of exact funds here. I've spent the full amount, which is something I like to do with my FPL teams. So that's the team. Like I said, I've got the pool captain initially, but realistically, the captaincy that comes through is probably going to be one of the later game weeks in like a Haaland or an Mbappe, etc. So yeah, we'll see what happens. And the next time you see me will be a roundup of Matchday 2, how many points I got, and also hopefully we've got at least one return towards a little short talk about a passage or verse in the Bible that links to the player's name and the goal time. Hopefully the premise makes sense for this series. Please do like and subscribe if you want to hear more about this, if you want to hear sort of some, yeah, taste of the Christian faith, perhaps some deeper meaning in life that you can find from this that I've found for myself in the Lord, and I hope you can find as well if you haven't already. And if you are a Christian already, then hopefully this is an encouraging video, while also paired with some FPL hobby. And I'll leave it there before the video is too long. But thanks so much for watching, particularly if you've lasted this far. But yeah, for now, I look forward to catching you on the next one.